Look, agency owners, most strategies and programs out there are completely theoretical. There is no real guidance behind them. Just people teaching you things that they think might work, or they're just hoping that you'll believe their strategy works. So I'm going to show you the exact 7 steps that I used to scale my first agency to over $500,000 in monthly revenue and then sell it for millions. And then I did it again with my second agency, scaling that one to over $250,000 in monthly revenue. I'm going to show you the exact system and how I would help you if we work together. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Gil Valerio, and in 3.5 years, I built an agency from 0 to millions in revenue, and I sold that agency in a multi-million-dollar deal. And what I do now is help agency owners just like you scale their agencies. But here's what I actually do. I run a private equity firm called Limitless Capital, where I partner with agency owners just like you. So aside from helping you scale and build your agency, what I'm really looking for is partnerships. I want to build a portfolio of agencies and then sell these agencies to institutional buyers, private equity firms, venture capital firms, because collectively, there are massive advantages to selling a portfolio with multiple agencies: higher multipliers, lower transaction fees, more leverage. So what I'm doing is bringing agencies just like yours into the program, showing you how I scaled my agency, and then forming partnerships so that we can exit these agencies collectively for millions of dollars. And if you give me the time, right now, I'm going to show you exactly how I'll help you accomplish what I've already done inside of your agency. And here's the thing, when we work together, you're working with me directly. You're not working with random coaches that I hand you off to. You will have direct access to me because I need to make sure you can not only implement the strategies, but you understand all the nuances of what to implement and when to implement it. That's how you break through plateaus in your business and scale the same way that I did. That's the biggest difference between what I'm doing here with Limitless and all these other cookie cutter programs out there. I'm giving you custom strategies and steps that I've actually implemented to make millions of dollars. And there's a lot of nuance in how and when to implement these strategies. So I'm working directly with you so that you know what to implement at what time and you understand exactly how to do it. And on top of that, this allows us to move fast. This is not a general coaching program where you get access to modules and then you are left to fend for yourself. So let's dive in right now and I'll show you the 7 steps that are going to take you from where you are right now to a multi-million-dollar agency. These are the 7 steps that every agency has to go through in order to go from just starting out all the way to building real enterprise value and selling. And when I say building enterprise value and selling, I want you to think of that synonymously with running a fun agency, because any business that actually has enterprise value and can sell also means it's not reliant upon you, which means you don't have to necessarily work in a day-to-day and run around and do a million things, right? So these 7 steps, believe it or not, were not by design initially when I built my agency, but after realizing what I did to build it and then mapping it out, these are the 7 steps that I went through on a macro level. Selected a niche, had scalable service, had a client acquisition system, had a pricing model that made sense and I was profitable, ops efficiency, delegation, hiring teams, systems, all the things. Enterprise acquisition, this one's questionable. You probably could skip this one. However, it makes it a lot easier to get to where you want to go. And then step number 7 is exit simulation, enterprise value. Each one of these I'm going to dive in and I'm going to give you a justification on why, right? And some of this might be repetitive, but stick with me. The very first thing that we do is pick a niche, which is just pick a customer, right? I've met a lot of agency owners that they almost kind of scoff at, like, oh, you do the typical model, pick a niche, pick an offer like this. And it's like, yes, that is. And the reason behind it is because it's very hard in a competitive landscape to get the plane off the ground, right? So the advantage of picking a niche is it allows us to do a couple things. It allows us to clearly communicate with our client avatar so they understand our value proposition, and it makes it easier to close deals. In the world that we live in, it's hard to close deals, right? So this allows us to clearly communicate. The other thing that allows us to do, it allows us to build systemized fulfillment, which we'll get to. But systemized fulfillment is what allows us to essentially put clients through an assembly line so that we don't have to manually run ads for a chiropractor and a dentist and an e-commerce store or a trader, whatever, right? There's a million different niches, but we don't necessarily have to try to fulfill for all of them. We also don't have to try to sell everything to all of them, which I'll get to in a minute. But this first step is imperative to get the plane off the ground. And a question that you may have that I had is, what does get the plane off the ground mean? I would say over $1 million in annual revenue. And then the next question I would have is, can I expand from this customer, or should I, after I get to over $1 million in annual revenue? The answer is, of course you can if you want to. The logic is, why would you? Because we've all seen agencies, let's just use Alex Hormozi's gym launch as an example because it's a common, well-known one, that scaled up to $18 million in annual revenue and sold for $46 million in the extremely competitive gym niche. And if you have an LTV or an average monthly revenue ARPU per user of 2,500 modestly, if you had 500 customers, you would do 1.2 million in monthly revenue, not annual revenue, if you had 500 active clients at any given time. The reason I say that is, I think that a lot of times we believe there's not enough opportunity out there, and by expanding niches, we're expanding our total addressable market, which is true. But the question is there a need for it? Is the market that we're targeting with this niche not big enough to go acquire 200, 300, 400 clients? And very rarely is the answer yes. And if it is, if you're an extremely small micro niche where it's only 2,000 clients or TAM nationwide, then there's other overlapping niches that you can usually bring in. For example, med spas. So you can drill down to red light, you can drill down to Botox, to whatever, HRT, and you can expand to one of those other services to increase your TAM without convoluting things, or you can just open it up to all med spas and you still would be niche down. The second thing is create an offer. Some of the questions that come up are, why do I need an offer? And so in order to go out and acquire clients, there's many ways to do it. There's many ways to be creative, but one of the most direct paths is to say, chiropractor, I can get you this tangible result if you work with us, right? And you want that to be realistic. You want to push the thresholds of what you believe you can do. I always say your top 15% of clients, the result that they get, that should probably be your offer. Again, we could talk about the nuance in that because you might be like, whoa, I got clients that crush it, get an 80x ROI. Are you saying I should go out there and offer an 80x ROI? No, but use your judgment, and we should base it somewhere around our top performing clients. The other reason to have a result and an offer is to have a North Star for what you're trying to accomplish with your clients. The days of just saying, hey, I'm a marketing agency, I run ads for you, that's my job, that's what I do. Unfortunately, those days are gone because it's such a competitive world that we live in. If the offer is the service, you're going to have a very tough time acquiring clients because there are competitors and other people out there who their offer is their result, not the service. And I always tell this story, but if you go back 6-7 years, here's the progression of agencies in general. I know it's really confusing to run Facebook ads. I can run your Facebook ads for you and you pay me. And the client says, yes, I'm down with that. Let's do it. And then another agency got wise and said, hey, I can run your stuff for you and I can generate you 50 leads. And someone was like, oh, cool, I'll go with that agency because they're promising me leads. Then someone was like, I can run your ads, get you leads and get you appointments. And then someone was like, I can get you leads, get you appointments, get you ROI, all this thing. And unfortunately, in the world we live in, everybody continues to one up each other. Now, there are ways to play with this where you don't have to sell your soul on your offer, but you need an offer that is results based to be competitive. Also, to have a North Star of what you're trying to get your client. It also works with fulfillment. I'll explain why in this next step. The next step is creating a unique mechanism. This is the one that I always laugh at because some of you have created them and ChatGPT gives you a trademark logo and all this goofy stuff. And this would be one of the things if I was on the other end, I'd be like, what is the purpose of this? How is this going to help me close more deals, get more clients, make more money, and scale my agency? I'll tell you how. Through creating this, not only are you creating something that does allow you to stand out in the marketplace and articulate that in a comprehensible way to your client, it also allows you to reverse engineer what you need to do to get them the result. So let's look at 4 pillars. Okay. So let's say our 4 pillars of our unique mechanism is one, we're going to do market research. The other, we're just going to keep this vague, is custom, creative, and copy. The other is AI and human lead nurture. And then the one down here is transparent data analytics. So what these 4 pillars are, they allow me to create a system for fulfillment, which means no Leo involvement, eventually no Titus involvement, no Lucas involvement. That's the long-term goal. You don't have to manually do everything to fulfill for your clients, but we have to start with something to create a system. But to think about this at a very high level, if I know these are the 4 things I need to do, what I'm asking is to get the result. So if I work with a chiropractor and I promise them a 2x ROI in 90 days, what do I have to do to get that result? I have to do market research for them. I have to create custom creative and copy. I have to make sure they have AI and human lead nurture set up. And I have to make sure we have transparent data analytics so we understand what is working, what is not working, and we can optimize from there. These are the macro steps. From here, you'll get very detailed in what you do for fulfillment. And by the way, it doesn't have to be 4. It could be 10 of these. It could be 2 of them. It doesn't matter. What really matters is if I have a client and I know what the result I'm trying to get to, what do I have to do for them to get them the result? Having these macro steps allows us to systemize fulfillment. And I'll give you an example here. Do you remember Map, Karen? It was the research we do for a client in my old agency. Okay. Do you remember some of the things that I said that I was doing for my clients for market research?
Well, you were giving them like very specific data for how much they should spend in their you're looking at the population, you're looking at their competitors, that type of thing, to put it all into like a pre-document for them to show them what they needed to spend, giving them justification.
Exactly. So what needs to happen underneath this? We need to pull population. We need to pull competitive intel. We need to pull Census Bureau data. We need to like set up a mock campaign so we can see their targeting. So now these tell us all the little subtasks. And then simply the way that I build fulfillment, I go, how do we automate or delegate this one thing? We have to pull their population data. So how do we do that? Can that be an automated process through Zaps, through GHL, through Make, whatever it is? Or is this simply an SOP that I need to create for my team that gets assigned to them in ClickUp? And then this allows you to start to build out systemized fulfillment for every single step in each of these pillars. And you don't have to do it all in day one. You can build the plane as you're flying it, right? But you want to map this all out so you know exactly what the next step and the next thing is that you have to build and systemize. And over time, what'll happen is each step in each pillar will have automation, delegation, people doing it, some type of system, some type of SOP, some type of level of communication that handles that step and all the sub steps for the client. And when you've done those things, very simply, that allows you to create a system. And the whole purpose of creating a system for fulfillment is volume, so that we can sign more clients, so we can work with more people without doing it personally. Because the bottleneck when you don't build a system for fulfillment becomes you, becomes us, becomes me. I have to do all the shit for my client. And if I have to do it, it's unscalable because I have finite amount of time in my day in order to fulfill for those clients. A unique mechanism is not for fun. It's just a nice way to label it. It also has a nice ring when you present it to a client in a sales meeting, but it also allows you to start reverse engineering how you're going to get the result, how you're going to build a system, and then how you're going to sign 100, 200, 300 clients in volume, me being involved in all of them, right? And this step can move a little bit. Price, for each of you that we've worked on your price, some of you we've eliminated some options you had. We can go sign 500 clients, and if we're charging them $299 each and our margins are non-existent, it becomes impossible or pointless to scale that business. So this is obviously a piece to the puzzle, right? From reverse engineering fulfillment to understanding cost to acquire plus our cost to serve, right? And we want that to give us 30 to 40% margin. If we know what it costs to serve a client, and there's a whole detailed explanation video framework on this, I also be more than happy to answer questions, but like I go deep into this formula. I also go deep into how you can every 90 days test increasing your pricing in an analytical way where you're not just throwing stuff in the air and hoping it sticks. And if you're doing $500,000 a month, you'll be happy with these margins. And not only that, an acquirer, a buyer will also be happy with these margins, right? So once we have all these things and we understand who we're going to work for, what result we're going to get them, how we're going to get them the result, and then we've started systemizing it and how much we're going to charge them, we then have to find out how do we find our customers? And there's only 5 ways to get customers. We could do paid ads, we could do organic, referrals and word of mouth, cold outreach, and partnerships. Very simple. Here's the problem that every agency makes. Nobody is stupid. Nobody doesn't know that you could do these things to get customers. We all know we can. We underestimate the volume that we need in order to scale, and we also don't build systems around them. So I've worked with a lot of people that, for example, have done LinkedIn outreach, and they've gotten their agency to $30, $40, $50,000 doing LinkedIn outreach. However, they can't scale beyond that because the way that they do LinkedIn outreach is by them writing and sending each message. And they've done things to make it more efficient. They've created templates, they've leveraged ChatGPT or Claude or Jasper or AI, and they've copy and pasted and copy and pasted and copy and pasted. And they've even sometimes brought in VAs, right? But they haven't systemized any one of these things or this one thing to the manner that it drives in enough volume to where we can scale the business. And not going to take you all through the story again, but I had my big epiphany when I was at 120 grand a month in revenue, and I realized my agency was no longer scalable. We weren't acquiring enough clients to outpace our attrition, our churn. And my whole thing, I was like, that's it. It's broken. We either need to find a way to get, I think it was 35 to 37 appointments a month. And if we didn't, we no longer can scale. And so all of these can work, but what you have to do is create a system around them. And paid ads is the one that I love. Ultimately, like, yes, you need a back-end system, but the way that you scale it is just like put more money in the machine, right? You could just literally throw more money in it. Now it has to be profitable. It has to be working. You have to have a system around how you run the ads and what makes sense. You have to be able to delegate media buying, but any one of these methods can get you to your goal, right? Can scale your agency to the numbers you're looking to scale them to. The biggest mistake that, again, we make is that because it's gotten us to 30 or 40K, either leveraging partnerships or whatever, again, we just haven't systemized it. So we can't scale it. So we eventually hit a bottleneck that isn't fixable. And then we either have to make the decision that we have to build a system and do it in volume, or we concede that the agency agency has reached its level, its threshold, and it won't get any bigger. And that's what I was faced with in my agency when I hit that 120 mark. I was like, there's nowhere else to go. I have to pump it up, or I have to accept that I'm not going to grow anymore. So we have to build a system around whatever is generating leads. And a system just means volume and generates us a lot of leads so we can acquire more deals, right? So if it's organic, you need to scale your personal brand to the point that people are organically finding you on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, and you have clear call to actions in your profiles. You have top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel posting. People are engaging and they're literally finding you through organic and they're buying your thing through organic, right? Not impossible, hard to do, and takes a lot of time. The beauty in it is if and when you crack this, it's like the best thing in the world. Paid ads, we all know what that is. You have to get paid ads. You have to get them to convert within KPI. You have to get qualified leads that are showing up, be able to have sales calls, and you have to consistently be able to pretty much generate a 3-to-1 ROAS. That's a minimum threshold in order to scale ads. You have to maintain over a long period of time a 3-to-1 ROAS. Referrals and word of mouth, it's possible. It's hard. If you have 100 clients, your attrition is 7% per month. You're losing 7 a month. That means you need to get more than 7 referrals. If we take out price out of the equation, you have to get more than 7 referrals every single month to outpace your attrition to continue to grow. So not impossible, but you'd have to really find a good way to systemize this. And some of it can be building affiliate networks, groups where you literally have people out there selling for you. Cold outreach, we know all the different ways you could do cold outreach, right? It can be direct messaging, cold email, LinkedIn, etc. Once again, need a system. And then partnerships, right? Large affiliate partnerships. One other thing I want to say about this, and then I'll keep it moving. I believe if you haven't cracked any one of these right now, you should not focus on all of them or 2 of them or 3 of them. You should literally just pick one and focus on it and become a master in it. Make sure it's working, make sure it's consistent, delegate it, give it to somebody else who can manage it and maintain it at your same level, and then you move to the next one. And by the way, it's exactly what I did. I scaled paid ads, I systemized, I delegated it to my team, and then I moved to try to figuring out other things in my agency, large partnerships, franchises, all the things, cold outreach. And then I got closely involved in these to make sure that they worked as well. But just a common mistake I see with agencies too is they dabble and they think, well, my paid ads is not crushing. It kind of sucks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start trying cold outreach as well to pick up 3 more deals. And it's like, no, don't do that, because it takes the time, energy, and cost to go and figure this out. You can just do this better and get the 3 clients there. So until you've reached at scale $10, $15, $20,000 in ad spend, where you're at least a 3x ROAS on cash collected, don't start dabbling in these just yet, right? So then we're systemizing, and then ultimately enterprise acquisition. Now you could skip this step. However, it can accelerate growth very quickly. I drew these green lines back to how do we find clients, because this is part of it. But my fear in enterprise acquisition is the saturation into one big client. And so if you go sign a franchise and then that franchise leaves, you run the risk of your whole business falling apart. If you can acquire clients through one or more of these methods, and you also bring this in, you can drastically accelerate your growth without the risk of, if they pull the carpet under you, they pull the rug, your whole agency doesn't fall apart, go away, and then you have to go find that next partner or you're out of the game. And also at this level, once you figure these things out, I feel like you then have the privilege and the right to go after the big dogs, to go after the whales. And again, I would tell you guys to check out the call I did on this, because there's some crazy things that I think you'd be surprised. Like, competition is actually far less with these clients than it is with all these clients in here, because these ones are inundated with messages from a bunch of different agencies. These ones are actually not. Again, depending on EBITDA, trailing 12 month, all those things, you want to start taking steps to ensure that you're building a sellable agency. What the hell does that even mean? What is a sellable agency, right? It's all these things. It's literally everything we just talked about. It's having a system to fulfill. It's having an offer, a result. It's having a system to acquire. It's having delegation in all of these things, moving yourself out of it. Now, there is obviously more sophisticated levels in an exit, but at the end of the day, if you have a profitable business that is systemized and is not solely relying upon you, you have 80% of the work done in selling your agency for a very healthy amount of money, right? And then you win the game. Call that what you want. Win the game for you could be, I work 6 to 8 hours a week. I love it. I stay in it. Or it could be, I go get 3 million or 4 million or 6 million in value. I sell it and then I move into something else. Again, the goal in me showing you this is to kind of connect the dots on some of the things I've been working on individually, from like, let's structure your offer. Let's structure your price. Let's build your unique mechanism. Let's talk about where you're going to acquire clients from. Let's do all these things. It all, in my mind at least, has a systemized fashion, and we progress towards what we want. So if you want to learn on how you can not only join our scaling program, but also have the potential to become part of our private equity portfolio, go ahead and click the link below this video and schedule a call with our team. We'll meet with you and we'll walk you through exactly how everything works. And because I am personally working with every agency in our program, we do have a cap on how many we can allow in. Because the truth is, my time is literally limited. And as much as I'd like to, I simply can't work with every agency.